1. This meeting of the Plan Commission is called to order. Roll call. Laurel Mode.
Here.
Gina Lawson. Jeff Funk.
Here.
Colleen Visa. Zach Ewell.
Here.
Dave Rosenberg.
Here.
Gary Gruber.
Here.
John Fitzgerald.
Here.
All right. Thank you. If everyone can join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Now, item 4 is the presentation of the minutes for the September 17th meeting of our Plan Commission. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. I'm going to ask for the commissioners to see if we could change the order of things a little bit tonight. We're going to see if we can move item 7, the Munhall Glen PUD, to the front, and then we'll take River 504 townhomes, and then lastly we'll take the emblem. Is that okay with everyone?
Yep.
Need it affirmative? Affirmative? Okay. All right. So, item number 7, please. This item is an application for a special use requesting an amendment to the Munhall Glen PUD regarding a rear yard porch encroachment filed by Earhart of Earhart Construction. This should be done in 2 items. Item A is the public hearing that is required for this application. The Plan Commission has a role to conduct all public hearings related to zoning applications filed with our city. Regarding our procedure, staff will have a summary presentation of the application. Then the applicant will make their presentation. We will take questions from our commission, and then finally members of the public. Anyone wishing to give testimony will please come up to the lectern. When the Plan Commission feels that we have gathered enough evidence to make a recommendation, we will close the public hearing. Then the Plan Commission will discuss this relative to the findings of fact, which are laid out in our packets, and then we will ask for a vote for a recommendation to the Planning and Development Committee. Before we begin, anyone who wishes to give testimony for or against, we need to swear you in. If you could all please stand. And this is just for item 7.
Yes, sorry, yes, you do, Court.
Okay. Do you swear the testimony you'll provide tonight will be the truth? If so, say I do. I do. All right. When you do come up, please approach the lectern and state your name, spell your last name, and your address for our record. I will note that in the official meeting packet, which was on the city's website, all of that information is part of the public hearing record, and so all the members have received all the letters and testimony provided pre the meeting. We had one additional letter that came in yesterday. It was from Christine Ostrowski, and it was related to this project. She lives on Adams Avenue. And then the only other letter we received was actually related to the the 504 townhomes, and it was a letter from Michael Moravec dated today. And so just to let you know that we have received all these and have read them prior to our meeting. So, staff, if you could begin.
The subject property is the Munhall Glen PUD, which is a 50-lot single-family subdivision near Tyler Road and Munhall Avenue. The PUD was approved in 2020, and the subdivision is under construction. Earhart is the developer, and Court Earhart is requesting to amend the Munhall Glen PUD to allow a zoning deviation for rear porches. Proposed is to allow porches to encroach up to 10 feet into the rear yard setback, and this change would apply to all lots in the subdivision. Note that there is a single finding for PUD applications, which is the PUD, and in this case, the PUD amendment in the public interest, and there are several criteria for you to consider when making this decision. and the applicant has provided responses to those as part of the application. I'll now turn it over to Court Earhart for the presentation.
Hi, my name is Court Earhart. That's C-O-U-R-T and A-I-R-H-A-R-T. Address is 500 East Roosevelt Road in West Chicago, Illinois, 60185. As I stated, my name is Court Earhart, and I'm with Earhart Construction. We are a small local builder, building throughout Kane and DuPage counties. And actually, this year is a neat year for us. We're actually celebrating building our 60th year, meeting area housing needs. And I'm here to talk tonight about Munhall Glen. I'll be going over the zoning history, the neighborhood plan, house designs, and our amendment request. Munhall Glen is located on the east side of St. Charles, off of Tyler and Munhall Avenue. It was originally zoned M2 light industrial, which would have allowed for 60% lot coverage and setbacks as small as 20 feet. We actually downzoned the property to a less intensive use of RS4 PUD. The neighborhood consists of 50 lots. There are 2 areas for detention. There's one at the front, some open space detention, and also a neighborhood gathering area, as well as on the north end, there is open space with detention basin and a neighborhood gathering area to incentivize neighborhood get-togethers. The residents of Munhall Glen are focused with front porches and first floor master bedrooms, hoping to enhance neighborhood interaction with the front porches and providing a pleasant streetscape. The approved house setbacks at the time we applied and were approved for the Munhall Glen PUD, our front porch setback is 14 feet. Our house setback, 20 foot, which is enclosed heated living space, is 20 feet. The garage, we actually put a more restrictive setback on the garage than RS4 requires. We pushed that back to 25 feet. The interior side yards are 6 feet. Corner side yards are 15 feet. The rear yard is 30 feet. And unenclosed rear porch encroachment is allowed 8 feet into the rear yard, which is why we're here discussing this tonight. The current zoning, as I say, was unenclosed porches are allowed to encroach in the rear yard setback up to 15 feet. Under the St. Charles zoning manual, an unenclosed porch is defined as a structure immediately adjoining and projecting from an exterior wall of a building which has direct access into the building. It's covered by a roof or an eave and is completely open on all 4 sides, not adjoining an exterior wall of a building except for railings and columns. An enclosed porch is basically the above definition. However, it is allowed to be enclosed by a combination of walls and permanent or temporary windows or screens. Screened-in rooms shall be considered enclosed porches, which really is the issue I'm here for this evening. Our amendment request would be to allow unenclosed and enclosed porches to encroach into the rear yard setback up to 10 feet. Here's an example of an unenclosed porch. That's on lot 42 in Munhall Glen. And here's an example of a screened-in porch in Munhall Glen. And our rear setback, so our rear setback line is 30 feet, and our unenclosed porch can encroach on the rear yard, but if we want to do a screen porch, it can't. And so I'm trying to clean that up by requesting the amendment that both unenclosed and enclosed porches could encroach into the rear yard setback up to 10 feet. So I would, again, request that you recommend approval for to allow unenclosed and enclosed porches to encroach into the rear yard setback up to 10 feet. I thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, respond to any questions. Again, Court Earhart Construction, thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioners?
I have a question. The existing PUD allows for an 8-foot porch unenclosed.
Correct.
Why would you not simply ask for an enclosed 8-foot porch versus extending 2 feet more into the yard for both?
I have a few lots that it impacts negatively, but I would be willing to accept that we would just keep those the same and go to that. But I was hoping to go to 10 feet because there's a couple of lots at the north end that could be negatively impacted by that, and they back to the detention area. And
Thank you.
Question for staff. The unenclosed porch, does it have a roof structure over it, or is it freestanding, basically a deck? I just want a point of clarification. I know you had your photos, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, our definition of unenclosed porch includes a covering, and it can have railings, but it can't be screened in.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking is just because from a bulk standard standpoint, if the roof structure already exists, the screening doesn't, it doesn't add to the bulk is where I'm getting at for my question.
I guess my concern is, on the south side of the property, you're abutting, existing homes that have been there for I don't know how many years, and my concern is that, just looking at the proximity, what is it, 30-foot setback they have for the house?
30-foot setback for a house, correct.
Right. Just how close you are from, the house to the rear property line, and those houses to the south of you. I wouldn't have any problem if this was all new and you, it's just, my concern is the existing neighbors that have been there for so long, and you're building these houses so close on, at that location on the south side. And now you're asking for more for these unenclosed porches. So it's only 20 feet, so that's pretty, that proximity is pretty close.
Yeah. And the unenclosed porch would be allowed to be at 22 feet, and so yes, I'm requesting an additional 2 feet, you're correct.
So have you spoken to any of the neighbors?
I've spoken to the neighbors previously when we went through, some of the neighbors previously went through. I did not speak to any of the neighbors prior to this.
You're aware that we received a number of letters?
Yeah, I know that
from the neighbors that Mr. Funk is talking about?
Yeah, I know that we sent out, there was 110 letters sent out, and I understand that 6 letters, unless this was the 7th today that I didn't know about, so 7 letters were received. I know that of the things that I saw, 2 of those letters back to it. One of those letters was like a partial, they actually backed to the St. Charles facility, and then and the others didn't back to it. So yes, but I understand we sent out 110 letters and we got 7, so approximately 6% response. Understand?
And you're asking for, are you asking for all the properties, or are you asking?
I had asked for all of the properties, right. All 50 lots, to have the opportunity to go for 10 foot for an unenclosed, and it encroach up to 10 feet for an unenclosed and an enclosed porch. Everything right now could go 8 feet, and that's where I was saying, if there was a need to change, there was a concern with bulk, I'd be willing to change my request to allow, in essence, then I guess the unenclosed porch would stay the same and it would just be an enclosed porch. And quite honestly, it deals with a screened-in porch. That's really what it is these people are looking for 3-season living. I had, I personally walked the neighborhood a few times to get all the people to talk to the neighbors who are part of it, because it's kind of a unique situation where I'm asking for the whole PUD, and we've already closed on approximately 20 of the properties in there.
Okay.
And the reason I had wanted 10 feet was, again, the north end. There's a couple lots on the north end that are a little bit more difficult for the setback, and they back to the north detention area.
Yeah, and I have no issue with the north or even the west or the east lots. It's really those southern lots that are adjacent to the existing properties. So, I mean, if there's a way that you can put that in your request, or maybe,
and again, it's I actually, if I would have realized that rear porch would not be a screen porch, I would have made this request originally, and I'd be willing to change my request to have, in this case, the only change on the south end would be that unenclosed porches could also be screened in.
Okay. Which I have no issue with.
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you.
Thanks.
Is there a consideration to, I guess one of the things I remember when this project came through, that a number of the neighbors were concerned about the level of separation between your project and theirs on the south side.
Yeah.
So basically it's lots 5 through 20. And there was discussion about landscape buffer and how that was going to be handled. And there was also discussion about that the existing vegetation would be maintained to the extent possible to do the improvements. Well, in reality, all of it's gone. And so for those lots 5 through 20, is there a way that you could add to this to add a buffer, increase the landscape buffer there to address some of those concerns about the relationship and the extra, if you will, encroachment into the rear yard?
Yeah, the zoning is similar. There are houses on the south of us that are in the approximately 30 to 35-foot setbacks, just like we are in our rear yard. They're built that way. What we did is one of the benefits of modern development is that we really do actually solve stormwater issues. And so we're taking a lot of stormwater, and our grading plan, based on our grading plan, we're actually containing our stormwater. We have to create swales all the way around. Under St. Charles regulations, they don't allow certain vegetation within their stormwater drainage easements, which I think there's some good logic for that. So what we actually did is during that process, we moved our stormwater engineering in 5 feet. We created a 5-foot landscape buffer, and we have planted trees all the way along that as part of our improvements. We have had neighbors that have moved in, our homeowners have moved in and have added in that. So we created that buffer area so they could do that. And again, we plant 2 to 3 trees in the rear in this landscape buffer on every lot. And that's part of our landscape plan that we turned in as part of the original PUD.
And I'm asking you, are you going to do more?
No, we won't do more than what we did then.
As far as that enclosed porch, and saying it's related to screen porches and stuff, the definition is our definition in the ordinance is a little broader than that. Would you narrow your definition to make sure that it's only screen porches?
If, there's screen porch, and there's like a vinyl window, like a triple track, it's like vinyl now, and so you're saying not even go with that, go with screen. I would rather keep it where a person could do the screen or that triple track type modern vinyl, if they could.
Okay. Other questions?
I have one more question. Could you identify which lots specifically, would you prefer to have the 10 feet by that one detention lot?
Yeah.
Just for curiosity.
It's, if you look on the screen where the arrow is, it's those basically these lots in this area, which is basically lots 27, 28, 29, and 30. And at the end of the day, it could get away, we could deal with 8 feet. I'd rather have 10 feet on those, but we could deal with 8 feet, and again, it's the screen. And Commissioner Vargalich, if you said court, we're absolutely going to turn this down unless you do screens, I would.
Well,
but I think
we don't turn anything down. We make a recommendation.
Recommendation. I think.
I just want to.
Yeah.
We're not.
That's correct. I appreciate that. I think the reality is with roof, that's where the bulk comes from, and I think our request is reasonable. So.
I think you're correct. You know, given that you're already allowed the 8 feet with the roof, if you weren't allowed the roof, it would be, I think, a different conversation. You know, already.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said before, I mean, I have no issue with the 10 feet as long as it's not adjacent to those southern properties. So if you want to, you know.
If we could do 8 feet and 8-foot screen on the south property and then 10 feet on the others, I'd be completely amenable to that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
I would agree with that as well.
Mm-hmm. Interior.
Any other questions from our commissioners at this point? All right. Thank you. We're going to open it up to the public, and if anyone would like to speak, you could please come forward and just provide us with your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Janelle Thurston, and I'm at 1450 Adams Avenue. So basically, he's begging for 2 feet, which I have no problem with, and one of your houses is going to be right on mine, which is I have no problem with. So if it's going to be an enclosed porch that you want, in all honesty, okay,
So
sorry.
we have the microphone, we have a court.
Sorry. So in all honesty, if I'm living behind them and they want a screened-in porch, instead of having just the one pane that everybody's talking about because it's going to be so close to us, I would rather have the pane that he's talking about, the thicker, so that it could be more complete-looking actual room addition type than just a screened-in porch. So, but I really don't see a problem, and I don't know why my neighbors would, with 2 feet. That's what we're talking about. I mean, if you were talking about coming up further, and I understand that there are people that are going to be closer to the porches than we are, I totally understand that, but it's still, it's 2 feet. It's increasing our property value by a lot. So it's not doing any damage anywhere or hurting anyone's property values. I, to be honest, really don't see an issue.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. All right. At this point, do we have anything else we'd like to ask before we close the public hearing? Move on to item B, if you. Anything else? All right, so I have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All right,
I'll second.
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. So we've closed the public hearing, and we will open item 7B, our discussion and recommendation. So this is an opportunity for the Plan Commission to have further discussion on some of the things we've already talked about, and also address the findings of fact, which are in the packet that everyone have received. Is there any additional comments from staff before we begin on this part?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, so commissioners, anything that you guys would like to talk about before we make any kind of a motion?
Yeah, Jeff, I have one question for you. When you talk about the southern line, what, were you talking like the entire southern line, like from lot 5 to 20?
20?
For the 8 foot, I just want to confirm that, because we need that in the recommendation.
Yeah, any property that abuts to an adjacent, existing.
So that would be lots 5 to 20.
Okay, which,
Correct, Court? Yeah.
which, to that point, I mean, I would be supportive of 8 foot there, and then the rest being allowed to 10, because even the interior lots within the development, they're constructed, and the homeowners purchase those new lots knowing that, so it's a little bit different than adjacent to an existing subdivision.
I agree.
I think we should also think about what she was saying with allowing the vinyl windows to reduce noise from other neighbors too.
Yes, and if we approve an enclosed porch, which is what this request is for, then that is included in the request.
Okay.
They've already requested that an enclosed porch, which that's one version of an enclosed porch. There's
Okay.
multiple.
I just wasn't clear.
But that would be allowed with this recommendation for approval.
Independent of 8 to 10 feet, that would be allowed.
No, because at 8 feet, it's only an unenclosed porch right now.
So you couldn't do,
The screen or the vinyl or windows, it has to be the open air concept. So that's why he's here asking for the enclosed aspect.
so the compromise we're talking about, though, is to approve it for the part of the subdivision that is not facing those homes that are existing.
So that would be the 10 feet.
That would be the 10 feet.
But all of it could be enclosed or unenclosed.
But they would still get
But they would be,
closed.
but they would
Still
be
have it
enclosed.
Yeah.
On the 8th.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. They could be enclosed on the 8th, but,
Yeah, good question.
okay.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions in this discussion? Mr. Funk, you look like you're thinking about something.
No, I'm good.
You're okay?
I just said what I.
Ah, good, good. All right, all right. Is there then a motion on this item?
I can try.
Go
Okay.
ahead, Lauren.
Okay, I'd like to recommend that the Plan Commission approve a 10-foot enclosed or unenclosed porch on all of the properties in Mulhall Glen, with the exception of lots 5 to 20, where the limitation would be an enclosed or unenclosed 8-foot porch.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, well, let me, 4B5 roll call. All right, so the motion is for the Munhall Glen PUD, the application for special use request amendment to the PUD regarding rear yard encroachment filed by Earhart Construction is to approve for recommendation, a recommendation for approval of enclosed porches and open air porches on all lots to be 8 feet on lots 5 to 20 and up to 10 feet on all other lots. Right? Roll call. Laurel Mode,
Yes.
Jeff Funk,
Yes.
Zach Ewald,
Yes.
Dave Rosenberg,
Yes.
Gary Gruber,
Yes.
John Fitzgerald,
Yes.
myself, yes. This item is complete. Thank you, Court. We'll move on to...
Thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it. I know Tuesday nights like this can go on for a long time, so thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Item 5, River 504 Townhomes. This is a concept plan for River 504 Townhomes in the Brownstone PUD, filed by July Sayers of J&B Builders. The purpose of the concept plan review is to allow and applicant to obtain informal input on a concept development prior to filing formal zoning applications and preparing the detailed plans and drawings that are required. The concept plan process also serves as a forum for our citizens and neighboring property owners to ask questions and express their views on this potential development. The procedure for tonight, we will start with staff comments. The applicant will then present. After that, the Plan Commission will ask questions and then see if there's any members of the audience with which to speak. And then finally, staff, given all that input, Plan Commission will offer final feedback to the applicant. As a reminder, the Plan Commission does not take any action to approve or deny a project at this stage. After this meeting, the concept plan will be discussed at the Planning and Development Committee of the City Council, likely November 11th. Is that correct? And if the applicant decides to pursue this project afterwards, then a full zoning applications will be filed and additional hearings will be held and allowing nearby property owners to have an opportunity to speak. If there's anyone who's going to speak, please, of course, come up and state your name and address. And if you could start with our staff, Ellen.
The subject property is 3 parcels at the northeast corner of South First and Prairie Streets on the west side of downtown. The property is the final undeveloped portion of the Brownstone PUD. Townhomes were initially planned for this site when the Brownstone PUD was approved in 2000. Then in 2005, plans were approved for a mixed-use building on this site and the site to the north. The northern building, called Milestone Row, was constructed thereafter, and the subject property has remained vacant. In 2022, this group reviewed a concept plan for a mixed-use building on the site. However, that project did not move forward. Julie Salyers of J&B Builders has now submitted a concept plan proposing to develop townhomes on the property. Feedback from the Plan Commission should focus around 2 items in particular. The first is the change in land use from the mixed-use building that's approved for the site to all residential, and also streetscaping along First Street and whether standard city sidewalk will be acceptable or a full streetscape improvement consistent with the majority of First Street should be required. And I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brian Bowie, B-U-O-Y, 2110 Beckham Lane, St. Charles, 60174.
And I'm Julie Salyers, S-A-L-Y-E-R-S, 276 Trudy Court in Batavia, 60510. So, as I mentioned, my name is Julie Salyers, and this is Brian Bowie, and we're with J&B Builders. We're here to present our concept plan for River 504 development at the northeast corner of South First Street and Prairie Street. Thank you. Thank you. First, I'd like to provide a brief background about J&B Builders. We're a local St. Charles business and have over 25 years of experience in the construction industry, working on residential, commercial, and government projects. In 1994, the company started as a custom home builder, and then in 2000, we expanded our focus and began working on the development and construction of commercial office and retail spaces. When the market changed in 2009, we changed as well, and we shifted our company focus to federal government work. Since then, we've completed numerous projects for various federal agencies, and we have held multiple contracts with the Department of Defense for work at various bases throughout the Midwest. I would now like to introduce our concept for the River 504 development. Our site would include 4 freestanding row house buildings with 2 units per building. We would have a private courtyard and entrance at the front elevation of each unit along South First Street, and an additional entrance would be provided at the side elevation of each unit. An individual driveway and 2-car garage would be located at the rear elevation, and that would be accessed from Limestone Drive. The green space between the buildings will be utilized for private exterior courtyard spaces for 6 of the units. We are proposing public parking along South First Street, as well as a sidewalk along South First Street and one along Cobblestone Drive as well. An additional off-site sidewalk would also be constructed to connect the existing Prairie Street sidewalk to the Fox River Trail. Finally, our concept includes improved landscaping along South First Street and around the perimeter of the site. Our building architecture includes 3.5-story buildings with up to 4,500 square feet of finished interior space. On the ground level, there will be a 2-car garage and flex space. The second and third levels will contain various living spaces, including kitchen, bedrooms, and bathrooms. And on the fourth level, another flex space and an exterior rooftop terrace plan. The building's traditional design will consist primarily of brick with architectural details, including a Juliet balcony at the fourth level and a pergola extending over the front exterior courtyard along the front elevation of the unit. Similar upgraded materials and details incorporated in the front elevation will also be included on the sides and the rear elevations of the building. We believe the building architecture will blend and complement the adjacent building. So multiple planning objectives factored into our revised concept plan. While we originally proposed a multi-use condominium project for this site, unfortunately, our original concept was not feasible and we opted not to pursue it. The cost of construction was higher than anticipated, and our planning analysis indicated the price point the units would need to be sold at could not be supported by the market. We looked at various methods to decrease the overall price point. Changes to the building materials were considered. However, we felt decreasing the quality of the materials would in turn decrease the overall aesthetic of the building design. Adding units was also contemplated. However, that would negatively increase the bulk of the building and require more parking spaces that couldn't be achieved due to the size of the site. And finally, we looked at phasing the construction to decrease the holding costs. However, this couldn't be achieved due to the building design. Our revised row house concept is a more residential style of construction with wood framing. It has more simplistic mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, and there's no common space to build. In addition, the project can be phased to decrease holding costs. All of these factors will decrease the overall project cost while still delivering a visually appealing end product. We also believe our new concept improves upon the previously approved brownstone PUD that included 2 freestanding buildings with 5 units in each building. This 2-building configuration would have resulted in 4 exterior units and 6 interior units. Interior units are harder to market and to sell. Although 2 additional units were previously approved for the site, we prefer to eliminate all interior units. Also, by limiting the number of buildings to a 4-building configuration, we can break up the structure mass on the site and provide additional green space between the buildings that can be utilized for private outdoor living space for 6 of the units. Finally, our concept provides architectural variety to the area. It has a different configuration from the adjacent properties, but will still blend in due to the traditional building style and materials to complement Milestone 1 and the Brownstone development. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners? Questions, thoughts?
Just one question. My first question is, with the sidewalk, would it blend, because there's the excuse me, the sidewalks in front of the existing townhouses, and then when that goes to yours, it appears is it going to be the same style as or like the brick pavers, or is it just gonna be like a white poured concrete that would look different?
It's along South First Street.
Mm-hmm.
So we're open to either, if you want to continue the existing streetscape with the brick pavers, we're open to doing that. Our concept plan does not show that,
Okay.
but we are open to doing that.
That was all I had right now, actually.
Other questions?
Yeah, I'll go. I think the continuation of the First streetscape should go all the way down to that, that south end of this property. I think that's kind of the logical path that it's been foreseen on that. Another thing, if you're gonna break up the buildings, it's fine. I would personally like to see them move forward though for the street wall aspect. I know you have some of the entry private space in the front. If that was possible to activate that somewhere else, I think bring it towards the bring it towards the street front would allow it to have the character that you see on the rest of First Street. Because right now, it's probably gonna set back, 10 feet, and then it looks like there's a stagger. So I think, if you could bring that forward, it would serve as a nice, compromise to the loss of retail or office or other mixed-use aspect, while still being transitional to what the brownstones offer. So it kind of is a transitional blend between those townhomes and this First Street, kind of design. So if you're to move forward, that would be my recommendation. I'm impartial about the 2 units. If you went with 2 4-unit buildings, you could do that too. But if you're setting the 4 2-unit buildings, that's fine too. But the architecture is very pleasing.
I would echo what Zach is saying in terms of the First Street frontage. The pergolas feel awkward to me on a business street like First Street. If you feel strongly about having a courtyard so the owners have outdoor space, I would lose the pergola and have a more European courtyard, if you will, behind maybe a gate or some kind of a private entrance. So that outdoor space existed, but it blended more with what's happening on First Street. I also would, staff had recommended that on the cobblestone side, you create a parkway, separation between the sidewalk and the road so that it mirrors the north side of cobblestone and then into the brownstones in a more seamless way. And I'm curious, what price point are you thinking?
There, again, not with the fluctuation of construction pricing right now. This is taking a stab in the dark, but we're looking at 1.5 and up
1.5
per unit.
Okay. Thank you. One more question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go
From a
ahead.
height perspective, what do you anticipate the height being in relationship to either the brownstone townhomes or the milestone condos?
The overall height, including the First Street facade, would be roughly 50 feet, so similar to the other buildings in the area.
Yeah, I've got a question. You said 3.5 stories. How do you get 3.5 stories?
The fourth floor would only be half of the existing footprint. So the back would be...
It is 4 stories.
It is 4 stories, but the back half of that, facing the brownstones, would be open deck.
Right. But it's a 4-story building. I guess the next question from an architecture standpoint, you're going to need 2 exits, right, for each floor? 2 stairways, right, to get to that 4th story. Yeah, I would just talk to your architect, but I think it becomes. And are you guys going to have elevators in these?
An option for an elevator, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would just correct it by saying it's 4 stories because it is. I noticed. I thought the first floor was. It would be 3.5 stories if the first floor was half story below grade, but it's not, right? So it's. Okay. But yeah, the building looks nice. I mean, I would talk to your architect about the 2 stairways, and you may be able to get away with 1 if the building's sprinkled, but it's something that you'd have to talk to him about.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other thoughts? I like the change to this product, and I think I realized that the original PUD had retail or non-residential use on the first floor, and given that this end of First Street and the other levels of retail that are available, I personally don't feel that that's a hindrance to your project at all. I guess I would have a slightly different feel for whether you have the pergolas or something like that or not. I think they can provide an interesting space and an interesting respite from the standpoint of people for those elevations that are facing west. And so I think that they might be something you would consider still, even though Laurel feels a little differently. I think if you were going down that road, again, depending on if you're talking this kind of price point for these, I would consider have mechanical louvers so that they could be closed at certain times of the day or year, or even if you had a little bit of rain or something like that. I think again it would provide an interesting option for people. And I don't think that feature would tremendously damage or put you out of the price point you're talking about to provide that. I think there was a request of staff regarding the rear setback for parking, to meet the 20 feet. I'm assuming that you guys can make that adjustment somewhere in the buildings or somewhere to
that's not
go
a
from
problem.
18 to 20. But I do agree that not having the back of the cars overhang the curb for for vehicular movements would be better, which is, I'm sure that's what we're talking about. I want to say thank you for including the off-site sidewalk extension. I think that was something that is necessary until there becomes an opportunity to redevelop Sammy's and that whole area across the street, because there are no sidewalks. There is no place to go once you get there without walking in a driveway. So the ability for whether people use it or not is a different topic, but I think that the idea that there is a way for people to comfortably and safely cross Prairie at this end of, in this portion of St. Charles, and I think it'll benefit the townhomes, the existing townhomes that are there now, and so I applaud that you guys are going to include that with the project. I'll defer to my colleagues over here to the left on all the architectural styling, but I like the use of masonry, and if you change that to include other types of masonry, you'll work through that with your architect. But I think that even if it's different, I think the idea that the buildings appear to be almost all masonry, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Correct skin will be masonry, so I think that will go a long way to connect materially to the existing ones, even though they won't have the same level of detailing and the same colors. But I think that that's a great connection, so thank you. All right. Since there's no public, and I'm pretty sure all these gentlemen are for the next project, I guess we can take a pass on the rest of it. Ellen, was there anything else that we should address in this? I think
No, so just to summarize and clarify, there's general consensus that the First Street streetscape improvements should be consistent with the rest of the commercial uses along First Street.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then there's support for the change in land use and support for the building architecture with perhaps some adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
I'd agree.
All right. All right. Well, thank you very much. Good luck with the next group of our community, and I hope to see you back with your preliminary plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Item 6, emblem of St. Charles, concept plan. same agenda, same topics. PUD filed by Jeff Wool of Cortera Multifamily Communities. We're going to follow the same procedures and everything, and I'll ask, before you begin, staff to provide a summary for us. Thank you.
All right, the subject property is a 29-acre site on the south side of Route 38 west of Meyer. The property is zoned regional business and is located in the Britcher Commons PUD. Cortera Multifamily Communities, represented by Jeff Wool, has filed a concept plan proposing a residential development consisting of apartments and townhomes. And there are 4 main topics on which staff would like the commissioners to focus their feedback on. The first is the residential land use, since the site is zoned commercial currently. Also, the proposed access into the site and throughout the site. Staff has provided some comments on how we believe that roadways can be better arranged within the site. The fire department has requested a full open access at the southeast corner and a connection between the townhome cul-de-sac and the multifamily portion. Also, pedestrian connectivity within the site and to surrounding properties, and then parks and open space facilities, whether that be a public park site dedicated to the park district or a private park within the development. The park district has received the concept plan. We have not received comments yet from the park district, but they do plan to provide those before P&D committee. But in conversations last year related to a different project at this site, they did indicate a preference for a park on this property. So we'll see what they say in relation to this project. But we'd like the commission's thoughts on parks as well.
Thank you, Ellen. Please.
Excellent. Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Jeff Wall. I work for Cortera Multifamily Communities, office out of 300 Park Boulevard in Itasca, Illinois, 60143. With me tonight is Rick Murphy, representing Lennar Homes, and everybody else left in the room. So if we can't answer your questions, shame on us. I apologize. You doing that for me? Okay, thank you. Next couple slides are speak a little bit to Lennar as a company and Cortera as a company. We're not going to go through every bullet point in the interest of time. While Lennar has been operating since 1954, Cortera, the company that I work for, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Lennar. So it's going to be a little bit confusing seeing 2 logos in the top left corner of the slide. My apologies, but we are one Lennar company. We are just simply, Cortera is a vertical underneath that overall Lennar umbrella. Cortera, not quite as old, but we have been operating in Chicagoland for 14 years now. And over the last 14 years, we have brought approximately 14 communities to the market. So we average about 1 community a year. We are a 5-in-1 vertically integrated company, and what that means is Cortera is a multifamily developer. We also have the assistance of in-house property management, in-house construction. Kevin Thornton leads our construction department. He's with us tonight. In-house asset management and also an in-house investment group. So from tonight, if this project were to go forward, all the way through construction, stabilization, you're dealing with one group. There's no third parties. It's one source of responsibility. So what are our goals? Trying to become a part of St. Charles, and then more specifically trying to become a part of this particular site south of Lincoln Highway, west of Randall Road. First and foremost, provide a variety of quality housing options. That's why Rick and I are here together tonight. On the apartment side, there's a unique unit mix that offers 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments. And then also, as you'll see as we dive into the actual master plan, there's a for sale component as well with townhomes. So one application that is able to provide both apartments and for sale. Support the Randall Road corridor with additional residents. We are beyond excited given the proximity to Randall Road. There are unbelievable amount of resources, from the ability to go grocery shopping, go out to eat, home improvement, all within a 5-minute walk. So
all of that opportunity for this potential development to bolster that economic development. That is definitely a goal. Provide accessible housing near public amenities, kind of echoing the previous comment. NGBS certified, that is the apartment specific, that's the National Green Building Standard, so what that is. Obviously, we will do everything to abide by the current energy code, but the NGBS certification gives us an opportunity to go a little bit above and beyond that code for each building to be nationally green building standard. And then demonstrate a quality that is consistent with city standards. And that's not just specific to the end product, the final built vertical structure, but that's the entire process. We take pride in open, transparent communication, efficient work, and we are very excited for the opportunity to prove that out to y'all over the next couple of years. All right, so now getting into the site, taking a step back, the residential areas framework plan, I am positive you're all very familiar with this. The subject site that we'll be discussing tonight is highlighted in the red box, blue star. Zooming in a little bit, the existing designation for the land use plan is industrial business park, but there is mention for potential residential, given that it's appropriate, provided densities and built form are similar to that of adjacent residential parcels. Something else that we really honed in on are the comp plan goals. We highlighted in bold things that we were attracted to: diversity, quality, character, safety, affordability, and appeal of residential neighborhoods, taking advantage of local goods and services the city has to offer, and agent-in-place approach to development, maintenance, and related services. And we'll touch on all of those later on in the presentation. In 1999, this site was annexed into the city of St. Charles via the Britcher Commons PUD. Went from a state residence district to a B3 general business district. It was then amended in 2006 to allow for residential and commercial uses. That is the plan on the right side of the screen. And then, as we all know, in 2018, Prairie One's Apartments came in on the south side of that site and now offers 250 homes. The subject site is approximately 30 acres, immediately north of the previously mentioned Prairie Winds, west of the Mire and self-storage, east of Kane County Services and a large patch of open area, and then south of Kane County Fairgrounds with some light industrial off of State Route 38. I am actually going to call up Luke to give you a brief on the master plan.
Good evening. My name is Zach Lukes. I'm with Gary R. Weber Associates, 402 East Liberty in Wheaton. So from a land planning perspective, we're looking at a mix of apartments and townhomes. We kept all of the apartments, the higher density, to the east. We've got 288 apartments and 72 corded townhomes. We're providing just under 30% open space, and amenities on the site. Each townhome space has a large courtyard in between each townhome. The apartment sections also have open spaces in between the larger sections of apartments. We are providing a dog walk area, as you can see, sort of on the southeast side. And for the townhome space, we have a pavilion and walking trails kind of out to it, located on the west side. The clubhouse at the top is kind of the star of the show, and located near the entrance, where it would be heavily landscaped. In between the two different types of spaces, we have a heavily landscaped buffer in between the townhomes and the apartments, and a heavy landscape buffer on the north side along Route 38.
Okay, so we're going to start with the multifamily apartments. What you're seeing on screen is a rendering. Each building is 3 stories. There are approximately 12 of these buildings on the apartment side or the east side. First floor is primarily masonry. Floors 2 and 3, cementitious siding. Every unit has either a recessed balcony or a recessed patio. And then the siding can vary, obviously in color and style, and that's something we're looking at to respond to some staff comments already. Image of the clubhouse. Clubhouse is approximately 5,000 square feet. It includes a fitness center, a social lounge, a kitchen, a package concierge system, and then some leasing office for our on-site management. There is on-site management that is there every day, every weekend, able to address any potential concerns that residents may have. A few shots of the interiors. Kitchens include quartz countertops, undermount sinks, full stainless steel appliance package, 42-inch upper cabinets. All the flooring is luxury vinyl plank throughout the unit. Bathrooms have tile enclosures for the tubs, and all units will have 9-foot ceilings. A lot of data here. I will highlight it in anticipation of potentially coming back to this slide. But the unit mix is really focusing on 1 and 2 bedrooms. It also includes 12 3-bedroom apartments. We are targeting $1,700 to $1,900 for 1-bedroom apartments, which range from 730 square feet to 775 square feet. 2 bedrooms will be $2,100 to $2,400, and they range from 1,050 to 1,200 square feet. And the 3 bedrooms are 1,400 square feet and will range from 2,800 to 3,100. That makes the qualifying household income $61,000 to $111,000. The $111,000 is the upper end of our limited 3 bedrooms at 31. Who will live here? Our resident profile are renters by choice. So typically empty nesters, young professionals appealing to teachers, firefighters, and police officers. The largest percentage of demographics in St. Charles is 55 plus, 65 plus, and 20 to 29. So we really tried to align that with who we are anticipating to move in. And I will come back to this in the interest of time. That target demographic, looking for local entertainment and activity, active users of parks and recreational facilities, 55 plus looking to downsize with a simplified housing experience, young couples saving to purchase a home or budget conscious, and then young singles establishing a professional career. We have quite a few of these communities opening up across the nation. We have a pretty good handle on who's moving in. In fact, we are opening this community in Oswego right now. We are 65% leased, and it is amazing to see that who we anticipated to live there, given the rental incomes, is actually coming out pretty accurate. We have a lot of teachers, a lot of firefighters and police officers. And that community, as Rick can attest, also shares the same proximity to Olenar single-family home community, which is right next door as well. So another thing that we have found, this was a surprise, is that as people are waiting for their home to be built or simply waiting to save up for one of those homes, they are able to move into the apartment community and just use that as a temporary resting spot as they're trying to achieve those long-term goals. These are a few images of that Oswego community that I was referencing. Bottom right-hand corner is an actual photo, not a rendering, of a typical apartment building. And then the clubhouse in the top left and bottom left. With that, I will turn it over to Rick to talk about the townhomes.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Rick Murphy from Lennar. Thank you for hearing us tonight. As a home builder, we operate a little differently than the rental side. I think the slide, one of the front slides is a little outdated. I think by the end of this year, we'll probably be in between 40 and 50 communities. I think in the past 6 years, we've gone from about 600 homes per year to about 1,500 last year, 1,500 closings. So we're in a broad number of communities between Northwest Indiana, Chicago area, and even Madison area market. Like Jeff was mentioning, vertically integrated. One of the reasons for our success is just the organization and the ability to have, mortgage company, have access to a mortgage company. We actually buy down rates, and it's more important for us to continue the flow so we don't have ups and downs, and give our home buyers a great product at a great price. We will figure out how to get people in homes. And, that's also a function of how we build our neighborhoods, too. So we'll come in and start homes on a regular basis. And something like this, I would figure we'd be, from the time we dug our first foundation to the time we're done, we're probably talking about 2 years or less. So that's just an estimation. Our homes, I think, let me figure out how to work this. We've got 3 different floor plans, 3 different sizes, and that helps us get articulation on the front of the buildings. That the bump outs create interest and, shadowing and all kinds of these. Actually, I wish this rendering was better. It looks a lot better in person. But that's what gets our buildings looking interesting. A lot of mixed materials. This is really a 3-story home. The lower level is a finished kind of you can use it for whatever you want. It's not fixed. The main living floor, I think it's 9-foot ceilings, a great room, kitchen, dining area, and then your bedrooms are upstairs. So let me see. I think we've probably got too many floor plans in here for you. These are actual pictures here of the homes. I don't know where this is. Liberty Meadows. It's in Aurora. Actual photos and a few plans, but this is an unfinished lower level. Laundry down here. So 3 different sizes, and a lot of that is just for the architecture. And amazingly, a lot of our specs are the same. We have the 42-inch cabinets, quartz counters. So when you come and look at one of our model homes, it's not going to be how much is this model. It's going to be very similar in price. There are a few upgrades that you can get, but the vinyl plank floor, it's not going to be like a major price difference from when you look at it. So that helps the buyer's perception as well. And I think back to the site plan, we're open for questions on this. Obviously, happy to hear your questions. Thank you.
I've got a question. Alan, did you talked about the fire review this plan already? Did they have any comments?
Yes, so the fire department, if you see there's an emergency access point at the southeast corner. The fire department has said that will need to be an open access for residents to use, and that is needed to meet fire code. And fire has also said that they are requesting a connection from the cul-de-sac, like near the end of the cul-de-sac, over into the multifamily area as well.
Yeah, on the south end of the property, correct?
Yeah.
Are you guys going to adjust the site plan to?
So in full disclosure, we are digesting the comments and trying to figure out the impact of those comments. We have always anticipated an emergency egress in the southeast corner of the apartment community and the potential for a connection at the cul-de-sac. A full access is going to be up to a negotiation with Meyer, obviously. We've spoken to Meyer, we've spoken to Storage and the bank. They're all in support of the project. But that conversation did not revolve around full access adjacent to their loading dock. It was sold as emergency egress with a breakaway gate or a lock that would be fire department access only. So we're going to have to revisit that conversation, and we'll be sure to keep everybody updated on how that goes. Does that address your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, my concern was that cul-de-sac on the south end, they have a dead end there, and turning radiuses for fire vehicles and accessing those townhomes if there was a fire, so.
Well, I think the cul-de-sac would be built to the city specifications and turn radiuses, and we would fully expect to have a, what do you call the, turning, exhibits to help that out. Obviously, what you see is a lot of detention, basically constrained by stormwater regulations and everything, so this has been a very difficult site to figure out and still, and realize that, you know, for our side of things, we only got 72 homes to work with, to pay the freight on all the extra amenities and highway, roadway widening and so forth. So it's been interesting.
I actually like the site layout. I like the way you guys created those retention ponds. It'd be nice to maybe create some paths around those and, you know, landscape those.
Yeah, we're looking at, I don't know if you can see the note in there, we're looking to explore something in the middle between the two basins and see if what we can add in here.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, overall, I think the site plan is you know, a nice site plan. It's well designed. My concern, like I said, is the cul-de-sac on the south end, and, but the retention ponds, the way you designed them would be nice if you had sidewalk or a path, walking path around that. Take advantage of the site, and anyways, I like the density. So.
Excellent. Thank you.
Do you know what school district it would flow into?
This would be St. Charles School District.
I'll say.
St. Charles,
St.
yes.
Charles?
And the school district has been provided with the concept plan, so they're aware.
And the concept of busing going into that neighborhood, you would anticipate they would be able to turn around in that cul-de-sac?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
From a busing standpoint?
Yes, yeah. The turning diagrams that Rick was referring to will be able to accommodate the largest fire truck that would be on your fleet. And I could double check to be sure, but I'm guessing if they can accommodate the fire truck, it'll be able to accommodate a bus as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With the townhouses, are there any options for one story? I know you had mentioned aging in place, and I know sometimes older people don't want to do stairs. I was just wondering if that's an option in any of the owner units.
No, not in that particular location. It's just we really have a lot of space constraints, and you know, if we went to the ranch home, one story, we probably wouldn't get half of what we have here. So we do have that product, and we love it. It's very popular. It's just, I think, just for the amount of homes we need to be able to do to carry the economics.
Okay.
It's probably not appropriate. Now, nothing to stop our people from buying, you know, from people ready to move into a home from next door.
I guess my one question is, why'd you put some, like, townhome number 1 so close to 38, just out of curiosity? I mean, it has a separate access, 1 and 2 have a separate access than the rest of the townhomes, and Route 38 gets pretty busy. If I was buying, I'd be a little bit more concerned about the location of that versus if I was renting, just, you know, full transparency. I think there might be some opportunity to maybe tweak that a little bit, just from a land use perspective, because it's going to be pretty hard to sell some that backs up right to Illinois 38, especially if they expand that at any point in time.
Go ahead. I'd probably say a couple of things on that. I think, I don't underestimate the ability of heavy vegetative cover and a lot of evergreen to actually end up screening that out. I think that distance is at least 60 feet. And the problem is, I think poor Zach here has tweaked every inch he could out of this plan. And again, we've done a lot of work along state highways, and it's frustrating a lot of ways, but we know enough to plan when when these are mature, you probably have a hard time seeing these buildings.
Because it's a pretty nice view straight north of there at the trucking facility.
Yeah, and the other thing is, The other thing is, it's not a surprise to a buyer. Well, what you're going to see is home sites in here that will have premiums, and then some that probably won't. So you'll see, it'll be priced to buy for whoever goes up there. We will sell all the homes.
Okay. Are you going to provide sidewalk across the northern frontage of the property? So extending it basically from the Metro Self-Storage across going west along 38?
I'm assuming that will be the case. We haven't determined if I see sidewalk up or along there already. I shouldn't be surprised if we have to continue that. Okay.
And then one other question. I'm looking at the site plan. It looks like there's some boxes within the apartment section. Is that, if you look at within the parking areas, there's several boxes of iterations that are kind of heavier line weight, maybe like 5 or 6 parking spaces. Is that a garage?
Yes, that's an enclosed garage for the units, and those will be dressed to be consistent architecturally with the buildings. So,
are they single-car garages or?
They're 5 single-car garages. Okay. Exactly.
And door, everything, not a carport?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, my only other comment would be is if there's opportunity, provide some connection from the townhomes, maybe to the east a little bit more to the apartments, so it's more uniform, and also so people don't have to walk in grass, if they want to meander their way to Lowe's or Myers.
Yes. An interesting nuance to the plan is that obviously the townhomes will be utilizing a public street grid or a public street and cul-de-sac, where everything within the apartment complex is private development. So we are challenged with, and we will respond to all of these comments and come up with a fair plan with the pedestrian connection, while understanding that we have to be sensitive to the liability of a private company having public walking through their property, right? So other times we've had gated communities and fences, and I don't think that's what we're targeting here, given some of the feedback from Ellen and Bruce, and we don't disagree at all. So we are trying to open this up. We're trying to make this seem like one cohesive development, while still respecting just the realities of the situation from an insurance perspective, all the things that we don't want to be talking about right now, but that will come into play for sure.
So just to ask a question, so the city would only maintain one stretch of road in that area, and then the rest would be, so just from a plowing standpoint, how would that work?
Well, we plow.
Even on the townhome side of things?
No, that would be the city.
So you have a street that just stops, kind of when you, like in the middle of the parking lot?
You're referring to the public street in the townhomes? And from, how would it be plowed?
Well, because when you come in from 38, it hooks towards where the clubhouse is, and it goes into the apartment area?
Yeah, we've dealt with that a number of different ways. You have a dump-off zone where they push in, and then they have a turnaround zone. This plan is that concept. It's not going to show those amount of details. We even have snow melting zones where you can handle the transition. Next iteration of this plan will start taking all those engineering items into effect, and you'll start seeing some of that stuff be populated.
Okay, because it just seems from a city maintenance standpoint, seems to,
I also don't want to be blind to the fact that Ellen and Bruce definitely have brought up concerns that with this street grid. So there'll be some push-pull, some slight shifts to be able to accommodate some of these things that you're talking about, for sure. Specifically at the intersection from public to private.
Okay. It just seems a little goofy of a transition.
Don't disagree, for sure.
And is the clubhouse open to everybody, or is it just the apartments?
It's just the apartments.
The townhouse will be managed through an HOA, I assume? Townhomes will...
Absolutely, yes.
So they'll be responsible for street snow removal and so forth?
In the private courts and everything, the city street would be built to city standards.
In keeping with the walkability, St. Charles has a focus right now on walkability, bikeability, and so forth all over the communities. So I would encourage you to think about how you could also create bikeability throughout not only your community, but connecting into the surrounding communities and retail. We want people to be able to get from their residential areas to the trails.
Yeah, I mean, one of the items, one of the reasons Rick and I are so excited is because of the potential for connectivity and the ability to leave your car at home and go do what you need to do. So that internal network and specifically how it relates to the adjacencies, we will for sure be focused on that.
Is it your plan, your goal, as far as the access point on Route 38, for that to be a full access, or right in, right out?
We think it needs to be full access, and with the left in and the right out. So we think there will be some improvements that need to be made along the south side of Route 38. Somehow accommodate the tapers, and you can turn right out safely. And that'll be dictated a lot by IDOT. Yeah, in that process, which we don't look forward to, but we have to do it.
Yeah, that's you're about 1,500 feet from the Meyer Light to the east, and so I think a full access on a roadway, IDOT roadway, that has speed limits of likely 50 plus, I think will be an interesting conversation for you guys to have with them and sort out how much taper they want for decel lanes for left turn, decel on the right turn, because it's a through lane to the next light at Peck. So I think that should be a separate engineering task.
There's taper requirements, and I can almost guarantee you the engineers almost know exactly what they need to do by the speeds and everything. I'm guessing that there's probably some widening that'll merge into that taper over there by the self-storage.
Okay, all right.
But I don't know, but that's what engineers are for.
Okay, all right. I would say, I guess some high-level comments related to the overall site plan and circulation, vehicular. I guess start with vehicular circulation. If not having the topography and seeing kind of like how the site drains, et cetera, but being that most engineers are looking for the most linear approach and to these things, that I'm assuming that the lower part of the site is along the west property line. And while I realize, detention is an important factor to the city, to all properties and everything, I think that the location of the detention doesn't allow for it to become a potential asset for the property. You in effect, have your townhomes with 10 buildings and only 10 units are actually taking advantage of that, amenity, if you will, on a day-to-day basis, realizing you can add the paths, you can, do those things, but it just feels like the detention should be more of an asset rather than a backside to the property. So understanding that has implications to mass grading addresses cost, all of those things, get all that. But I also think that in the scope of developing an interesting project for this property, mass grading within reason is one of the more reasonable things that you can spend money on to get the most impact for the end product, 72 townhomes, however many apartments, okay? So I think that there could be a relook from that perspective on how do I create more of an asset with that. Since detention is a requirement, get that. And we're not saying to eliminate it. It also could become a separation element between the apartments and the townhomes, so that this idea of a linear berm, heavily planted, is, if you will, adjusted, and maybe the detention becomes that element that starts to create that separation between the two uses, understanding you have a for sale product, versus a rental product. So I would just offer that. I think if in fact you can do that, I think that the .3 detention up by the 38 feels like something difficult to deal with and manage on the long term, whether that's in the, especially if it's in the townhome POA. I mean, there's no mystery that POAs are challenged to manage detention facilities long-term. So unless they're going to go into a separate lot that's shared by the townhomes and the apartments, and I don't know how your ownership structure works on that, they're usually not managed well. And so a small little piece of .3 acres becomes even more difficult to manage from a long-term aspect and a long-term asset. The 2.9, the 1.1, so you have, 3-4 acres there. It just seems like that could be handled in a different way and become a much more significant asset to the property. The ask at the beginning of this is to change the use and to change the zoning. So I think that that's for St. Charles, I think that's an interesting ask. I realized that it was granted for Prairie Winds. And I think that there's been positive and negative things about how Prairie Winds turned out. One of the things that I think is negative is that there's never been an agreement to allow pedestrian access through their property. I understand that there are liability issues, and we are a litigious society in America. I get that. But, Jeff, you indicated at the beginning that people have a 5-minute walk to lots of different things. I can tell you right now, there is no pass system that gets you into Myers or gets you anywhere close where you don't have to walk in a parking lot or walk along a vehicular road only. There are no sidewalks that connect into Myers. You have to walk on a road. The only way you can get into Meyer and stay on a pedestrian way is to use the concrete path running along 38 that goes in along all the way on 38 and drops you in next to the Chipotle, Wahlburgers, and that is the only way you, as a pedestrian, you can get there without having to walk, in a vehicular area. The inability to cross from this property and this proposed use to the south to be able to get to the path that's on Brisher, that is a more regional path that connects, even though that's owned by Geneva Park District, but we are at that boundary between these two communities. But to say that people could have that ability is an unfortunate mistake on how Prairie Winds was approved. But if there's any way that you would be able to communicate with them and see if there was a way as a pedestrian, you could, not vehicular, but as a pedestrian, walk and use their walkway system to get down to Brisher, I think that would go a long way to meeting that you can get somewhere in 5 minutes walking or being a pedestrian. Because there is a path system there that runs east to west that gets you over to Geneva Commons, that gets you over to Lowe's, and then that could get you up to Meyer or something like that. And I think those are important things when Laurel and others have talked about pedestrian connectivity. I think that, understanding that there's this topic that was already talked about, that you identified, Jeff, that there's, liability issues for people crossing from public ways into private ways. The bottom line is people are going to do it anyways. Whether you provide the walkway connection or don't you, they're going to do it. And so I think that it would be better if it was planned and executed properly, and if the sidewalks were there, because people are going to do it. And if they want to be able to get to the east in this particular situation, I think having that sidewalk to do that, I think, is better than them just doing it on their own. Has to be a way in the scale of general liability insurance and those kinds of things to address the fact that you're having a for sale product moving on to private property, understand that you're not inviting people to come up to your clubhouse and get a membership, because that's a whole different animal. But I think that those are some important things to think about. I think that the pond that's behind the Myers is not an asset. It was never an asset for Meyer, and it is not an asset for your project. It's 8 to 10 feet deep. It's got a 6-foot chain link fence all the way around it, and it says, go away. So to me, your buildings 3 and 4 that are flat against that, if there was a way to rework that area to think about buildings 1, 6, 5, 7, 3, 4, that whole thing there, to create more of an interior space, and so only the ends face the pond, I think would be a better end result, realizing that you're still trying to achieve a particular density. Understand that? I mean, the project is at 12 DUs an acre, gross. I don't think that's super high, personally. I mean, there might be other people who think differently, and certainly neighbors or, other elected officials might think differently, but in the world of multifamily, I don't think 12 DUs an acre is a high density. So I think that, that is not the issue from my perspective. I think it's how the site plan is executed and looking at how these things are being used. One of the things along that, if you're building 9, 10, 11, and 12, I would almost flip those with the driveway and put the driveway on the north side, the units on the south side of that little piece that kind of runs east to west there, so that, again, not really addressing that. And then you would actually have, even though they're 2 different products and 2 different owners, you would have your buildings adjacent and across from the Prairie Wind. Right now, they're separated by this parking lot. And I think units back to back almost, or have that feeling, are a much better relationship than them feeling like they belong to or have some amenity in a pond that truly was only a functional thing that they had to do. It was never thought of as an asset for the property. So I think those are some important things, if you guys could kind of take a look at that. I believe that Ellen and staff have been correct that the Park District will want land. I mean, right now, can you tell me what the closest park is to your property? A long way.
Yes, a long way.
And so I think that they're going to want land. And we will wait to hear from their board, which should be in the next few days to a week or so. But I think that they will want to have something. That would have, for it to be meaningful, will probably need to be a couple of acres. I mean, even though I know you owe them 7 per the land cash, and you've offered them the money, but for them to take a meaningful piece of land, my guess would have to be close to 2 acres, 1 acre at a bare minimum. There's a lot of, you have, 360 units. I don't know what the population generation is, but if you want to look at like a park that probably has some nice amenities, is Fairview Park at the corner of 19th and Oak. It's in an area where they have single-family homes, fairly dense single-family homes to the north and east, and they have multifamily to the west and south. And it is a very highly used park. And they have a playground, half-court basketball, a little bit of open space, but it's highly programmed. And I doubt that that's much less than 1.5 acres. But I'll let the Park District give you their formal request from the board. But I think that the ability to fit that in here, I think could be a challenge, understanding you guys have a particular yield that you want to do based on all the things that you need to do, including the fund with IDOT, which will be no small number to get that work done. And you have an owner, or you have a seller to achieve a price for, and I understand all of that. But again, at the beginning of this is an ask to change use, and I think that some of these things are important, and I think that go to how ultimately, we will look at the project when you guys come back. I hope you do. I understand this is not a simple site. I'm not, I get that it's not. I mean, I can see just from the plat of survey that you guys have already, addressed things like the easements that are already on the, you have a stormwater easement from this pond going to the west, and you've allowed for that to continue. You might have to get more creative than that to get this to work. Understanding that there's cost to that, and so where does that get, taken care of? Understand. And you can't just go, we'll just raise the rents, because then you're not competitive, and that doesn't help you either. So I get all that. It's not a simple algorithm to work out cost versus site design versus how many things am I changing that I don't want to change. But I need to get a plan, that's acceptable, I guess maybe to us, but we're only a recommending body, but ultimately to our elected officials. Like that, I think from a use standpoint, Jeff, you started this with a conversation about why have this use here, and why have these units here as it relates to the Randall corridor, people using things that are there, shopping, dining, all of those things. I agree with that 100%. I don't think that is an incorrect thought at all. But at the end of the day, this still gets to be in St. Charles. I think that there's a number of things to think about as you guys go forward. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just want to make a couple more comments after hearing Mr. Vergulich. One thing you may, instead of trying to avoid that retention pond, maybe talk to Myers, and maybe, there's an opportunity to create landscaping too. Because I think if you just leave it the way it is, I agree with Mr. Vergulich that it's going to become an eyesore, but I don't think you should avoid it by turning the buildings away. I think you should see if there's a way to embrace it and, talk to Meyer and figure out ways to incorporate walking paths, bike paths, things that connect both sides of the site, right? And I actually like where the retention pond is now on the west side, because I think that would be a great amenity looking west, sunsets and, walking paths along that lake, with sunset going down. So it's just connecting the two uses, the apartments and the townhomes, I think is integral. And I think it could be a simple, creating paths throughout. So creating paths to the clubhouse, creating paths to the retail on the east, and then creating paths to the retention pond lake that you have on the west. So, thank you. Great start, though. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, just one other comment on the detention. Based on where the location is and things like that, I'm just curious, because, you're talking about public-private, on the private side of the apartments, who would be responsible for the maintenance of those detention basins? Would it be the HOA, or would it be a shared cost?
Good question.
Because if,
Yeah.
it would be disproportionately placed on the HOA otherwise, and I think that's unfair to those buyers. It's pretty common for those facilities to end up in like backup SSAs. So, there's a lot of nuances to that, but just think about how you're going to pay for the ongoing maintenance of those.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that. It does need to be shared costs and a maintenance agreement between the parties.
Again, yeah, it'd just be, if you shift it all on the property owner from the buyer, that puts a lot of cost on that HOA.
I also think if that happens, there's a good incentive for the parties to, we're going to have one or the other parties overlooking maintenance and the quality of the maintenance and everything else. So probably more surety to get that well maintained.
Yeah, and if you come back, I think that's something that would need to be, kind of figured out before with a formal submittal.
We engage in a joint development agreement, even though we are in the same company. And the shared maintenance cost is a large part of that joint development agreement that Rick and I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see how you know, if the apartments are putting all their stormwater in these ponds, but then the townhomes, that, you know, the joint development agreement of some amount of money is paid from the townhomes or from the apartments to the townhomes to help with that, you know, that long-term maintenance kind of a thing.
I was trying to slip it by, but you guys just brought it to attention.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me.
Pretty sure he wouldn't let that happen. Pretty sure he wasn't gonna let that happen.
Yeah, we're all over it.
And do you hold on to your assets for the apartments? Or do you typically build them and then, you know, do you sell them eventually?
So we have a number of different financing structures, equity vehicles, if you will. Some developments are part of a fund, which is a long-term hold. Some are part of a merchant deal. This is too early for me to be able to.
Okay. So it's a, depends.
Depends on the equity partner.
Okay.
Almost everything.
All right.
Before you wrap up, staff just wanted to bring up one item about vehicular movements that I think was touched on briefly, but I think it maybe might merit just a little more discussion. So I think you've gotten the message loud and clear that pedestrian connectivity is really important. And we've talked about the intersection at Highway 38. But when staff was reviewing this, we started thinking increasingly that many people might choose to come through the existing stoplights at Meyer and enter this development through the private road south of the self-storage building. And the more we looked into that, we just thought about a large volume of cars coming into the apartment area and then trying to go south to apartments, or maybe even trying to go up and around and over into the townhouse development. And maybe you tried to accommodate that with some parallel parking right there where that private street first enters into the apartments. But we think it might need some more review and possibly some reconfigurations of drive aisles and drive throughs and connections between the apartment side and the townhouse side. And then that ties into what was discussed briefly earlier tonight about, you know, where the private streets would end or the private parking lots in the apartment side of the development versus what could be public streets on the townhouse side. So I just bring that up for the Plan Commission to be aware that the possibility of a lot of cars entering there could be high. We think this would have to be addressed as part of the traffic study. But assuming there would be a lot of cars coming through there, we think some reconfigurations might make sense, you know, moving buildings, moving drive aisles, et cetera. So I just wanted the developer to hear that and the commissioners to hear that as well.
Yeah, I think those are fair comments, and obviously, if you're getting your, going after a full access point on 38, a traffic study would, you know, be done. It's part of IDOT, but I'm sure it would make sense, given the relationship of these interconnected driveways and cross-access easements that already exist between these properties, that the traffic study addressed that also, as far as how will people come in. I mean, you know, signalized intersections have, if you will, a help and a comfort level for people to know when it's their turn, rather than waiting for people coming at 50 miles an hour to make a left-hand turn if you were westbound on 38, coming into what's proposed as the new street on 38. And that there will be people who just would prefer to use a signalized intersection over a non-signalized intersection. So, anyway, thank you, staff. Thank you all for your time tonight. And I'm sure you're going to hear from our Planning and Development Committee if you're going to go meet with them. And if it's, I think our group, if you guys feel it's a beneficial and not trying to make, you know, address your, you know, what your overall development schedule is, if you would want to come back for another concept plan review, depending on how much you feel this input and Planning Development Committee input changes your plan before you go into a fully engineered preliminary submittal, which is a whole nother level of soft cost to take on. I think our group would be open to that if you guys chose to do that. I think we would be open to that. But I'll leave it up to you, and depending on what your development schedule is. All right, thank you. All right, you guys, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ms. Pond. Thank you.
All right. since we have nobody left, there's no public comment, additional business, Plan Commission staff, anything, will we have a meeting in November?
Probably the second meeting of November.
Second meeting in November.
We'll
All right.
avoid election night.
Our calendars. All right.
No.
Is there a adjournment? Motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
November 8:45. Thank you so much.